Now I should like to invite the delegate of Japan.
Mr. President, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Japanese delegation, I would first like to extend my sincere congratulations to you, Mr. President, on your election to your important post. I greatly appreciate the work done by the preparatory committee of the conference, and wish also to express my delegation's thanks to the Secretary General of the conference, Dr. Elo, who, together with the staff of the Secretariat of the United Nations, has labored so long and hard to make this conference a success. Mr. President, I would like at the outset to describe briefly my country's experience with natural disasters and the policies and programs it has formulated to mitigate the damage they do, particularly those it has undertaken since the International Decade for the Natural Disaster Reduction began. Japan is especially vulnerable to natural disasters because of its climate and topography, and it has experienced countless earthquakes, typhoons, and other types of disaster. Between the end of World War II and the 1950s, when Japan's defenses against disasters were weakened by the war, the country was hit by a series of major typhoons, violent earthquakes, and other calamities, and over 1,000 lives were lost virtually every year. The Ise Bay typhoon of September 1959 alone killed more than 5,000 people, the largest toll taken by any typhoon in Japan in the post-war era. Until then, the practice has been to formulate emergency relief and reconstruction plans only when a disaster occurred. However, the Ise Bay disaster prompted the establishment of a planned and comprehensive disaster prevention administrative system, and in 1961, the basic law on disaster countermeasures was enacted. Thereafter, measures for prevention, emergency relief, and recovery were linked under a system that ensured a planned and comprehensive approach to disaster countermeasures. The enactment of the law on urgent forest conservation and flood control measures in 1960 was followed by the implementation of those measures and other projects designed to enhance Japan's ability to defend against disasters. In the same year, the government designated 1st September of every year as Disaster Prevention Day as a means of promoting knowledge about disaster prevention and raising public awareness. Since the enactment of the basic law on disaster countermeasures, Japan has taken various steps, such as reinforcement of its disaster prevention system, research into the specific and technical aspects of disasters, emergency measures, recovery operations, and improvement of information and communication system in the field. As a result of these measures, particularly in the area of disaster prevention, the number of those who die or can't be found afterwards in natural disasters has been dramatically reduced. The number continues to fall and now stands between 100 and 200 per year. However, in 1993, for the first time in 10 years, more than 400 people lost their lives owing to large-scale earthquakes and tidal waves and to the occurrence of sediment disaster resulting from protracted periods of rain and frequent typhoons. Today in Japan, as economic and social change continues in the form of urbanization, and information explosion, vulnerability to disasters and their consequences is increasing. For example, as population becomes more concentrated in the cities, residential districts expand into areas that include steep hills and lowlands, which are prone to sediment disasters and flooding. Moreover, in modern society, the lives of people depend greatly on such services as electricity, gas, water, telephones, computers, and data communication systems. Once any of these is disrupted, there is a risk of chain reaction that causes whole systems to cease to function. Even if only a part of these systems is disrupted by a natural disaster, its impact is felt more widely and the damage is magnified. Therefore, the promotion of disaster prevention remains an important issue as the risk of urban disasters, differing in form from conventional natural disasters, increase, requiring that new precautions be taken. Mr. President, Japan has accumulated valuable experience through the long history of its struggle against disasters. I honestly hope that many countries can profit from that experience, recognize the importance of disaster reduction, and make further efforts to mitigate the damage natural disasters can cause. Japan considers engagement in disaster reduction one of the fields in which the international community is best able to make a contribution. Since former Prime Minister Nakasone made a speech on natural disasters at the 42nd session of the United Nations General Assembly in 1987, we have played an active role in related activities as one of the principal sponsors of the International Decade for Natural Disaster Reduction. We have made contributions to the IDNDR Trust Fund since its establishment and provided Japanese staff members to the Secretariat of the Decade. Furthermore, Japan has extended its assistance to developing countries, drawing on its experience and expertise in disaster reduction. As for what Japan has done at home in this field, in 1989, the government headquarters for the IDNDR, headed by Prime Minister, was established to secure close mutual collaboration among the administrative organs concerned. Local government, the private sector, and scientists have also been active in the effort to address this problem. And in 1990, the National Council on the International Decade for the Natural Disaster Reduction was established by leading figures in the academic and industrial world with a basic objective of promoting a wide-reaching national movement. Since the beginning of the International Decade for Natural Disaster Reduction, the government headquarters and the Council have held international conferences on disaster prevention annually as part of their effort to promote the international exchange of experience and information in the field of disaster reduction. Mr. President, many of the natural disasters which cause the greatest damage occur in developing countries. Large-scale natural disasters completely negate long-term development efforts, and their economic and social repercussions are very serious in such countries. The damage inflicted by natural disasters is a major factor preventing developing countries from improving their environment. Disaster prevention accordingly should best be viewed as an environmental issue in the broad sense. It is for this reason that the Offshore Development Assistance Charter, adopted by the Japanese cabinet in June 1992, gives priority to the environment-related aid, and assistance for disaster prevention is one field that will be actively promoted. Japan's technology for disaster prevention is among the best in the world, and we have been actively engaged in making it available to countries in need. Its aid in the area of disaster reduction consists of various forms of cooperation, including grant and loan assistance, technical cooperation, and disaster relief teams, and covers a wide range of fields. With respect to volcanoes and erosion, for example, Japan provided grant assistance for the equipment used for disaster rehabilitation and reconstruction following the Mount Pinatubo eruption in the Philippines, and it also cooperated in a plan to control mud flows and flooding of volcanic deposits. And Japan has extended technical assistance to the Erosion Control Technology Center in Indonesia and the Flood and Erosion Control Technology Center in Nepal. As for typhoon-related aid, grant assistance is being provided for construction of cyclone shelters in Bangladesh, which suffers heavy damage virtually every year. And assistance is extended in such forms as the formulation of a master plan for flood control and in the provision of equipment to create a meteorological microwave network for disaster prevention. As for earthquake-related disasters, comprehensive technical cooperation is being provided to Mexico and Turkey. Seismographic equipment has been provided to Egypt, Nicaragua, Venezuela, and Colombia, and in training courses on various themes, including seismology and earthquake engineering, trainees have been accepted from many developing countries. In addition, in response to requests from countries that have suffered large-scale disasters such as earthquakes and floods, Japan extends assistance in the form of Japan disaster relief teams, emergency goods, including medical supplies and tents, and financial aid for disaster relief. Japan extended grant aid totaling $50,000 to the government of Ecuador to contribute to firefighting activities when a major fire occurred in the Galapagos last April. Mr. President, Japan's interest in hosting the World Conference on Natural Disaster Reduction stems from the great importance it attaches to disaster reduction. The purpose of this historic gathering is to review the activities of the first half of the decade and to chart a program of action for its second half and for the future. I would just like to offer a few comments as regards my government's position as we commence these activities. First, Japan endorses the draft Yokohama strategy for a safer world, which was drawn up by the preparatory committee, and it wishes to pay particular tribute to the leadership provided by the chairman, Mr. Donnanjira, and the other bureau members. Second, Japan is making efforts to enhance offshore development assistance in the field of the environment, based on the commitment it made at the UN Conference on Environment and Development. And as a part of these efforts, it will continue to extend various forms of assistance in the field of disaster reduction to support the self-help efforts of developing countries. Third, my government highly appreciates the efforts that have been made at the regional level, including the regional meetings that have been held as part of the process of preparing for this conference. My delegation would like to propose regional meetings be held as priority activities during the second half of the decade in order to further promote the exchange of views among governments, national committees, and other participants. Japan is prepared to make a contribution to such meetings should this proposal be adopted. Finally, Japan strongly hopes that the activities of the decade will be further promoted in accordance with the outcome of the conference. To this end, I would like to call on each country to contribute to the IDNDR Trust Fund. And my delegation also would like to express the view that the United Nations should pay due consideration to strengthening the IDNDR Secretariat. In closing, I hope that the World Conference on Natural Disaster Reduction will disseminate the global culture of prevention which is emphasized in the draft final document of the conference, and that the international community begin to engage more actively in disaster reduction activities. What we do here this week can contribute greatly to making the world a safer place. Japan, for its part, intends to do everything possible, both to make the conference a success and to bring that world into existence. Thank you.